A very good morning to all my dear students. Hi friends. Today we'll be starting with the subject which is operative dentistry. Actually, operative dentistry is mainly divided into 8 main chapters according to the pulse. Okay, so the chapter 1 we'll be discussing here today, which will be fundamentals of the cavity preparation. As you all know, the main important factor in the operative dentistry, which is a cavity preparation. So we should know ideally and fundamentally how we should do the cavity preparation. What are the important factors we should consider? What are the points to be noted when we are preparing, and how when all those factors, okay, all those things should be kept in mind before we start into the ideal cavity preparation. So the references which will be including Phillips, Sturtevant, Vimal Sikri and Marzuk, all these textbooks you can refer. I know everybody will be well known with the Sturtevant textbook. Okay, so you should always know that as a basis, and other textbooks also you can refer. Now let's begin with the chapter. Coming to the introduction part, the grand old man of dentistry is Dr. G.V. Black, which is an important question. Okay, so the grand old man of dentistry, that is Dr. G.V. Black. So this cavity preparation in and around revolves around this G.V. Black. Okay, so G.V. Black is the man who is the grand old man of the dentistry. The basic principles which are governing the design of the cavity and steps in their preparations, which was first suggested by the American dentist and teacher who is Dr. G.V. Black. Moving on to the definition of cavity preparation, when we are defining a cavity preparation, it is a mechanical alteration of a defective, injured or diseased tooth in order to best receive a restorative material which will re-establish a healthy state for the tooth, including aesthetic corrections where indicated, as well as which is along with normal form and function. So it is a mechanical alteration which we are doing in a tooth which will be defective, injured or diseased. Okay, why we are doing that? To best receive a restorative material. Okay, by doing that we will be re-establishing the healthy state for the tooth, which is including the aesthetic corrections as well as normal form and function. What are the objectives of a tooth preparation? Why we are doing a tooth preparation? What is the importance of doing a tooth preparation and how it is important to us? So the objectives are, it removes all defects and provide necessary protection to the pulp. Okay, so whichever defects are there, that are removed, and which provides alternatively a protection to the pulp. Extend the restoration as conservatively as possible. Okay, so the restoration we are extending it so that it is as conservatively as possible in that manner. Now tooth preparation such that under mastication both the tooth and the restoration that will not fracture or displace. Okay, so tooth preparation should be in such a condition, under mastication also both the tooth and the restoration should not fracture or it should not displace. Now it should also allow the functional and aesthetic placement of a restorative material. So these are the important objectives of the tooth preparation. Moving on to the classification of a cavity preparation, there are main 4 classifications. First one was given by G.V. Black classification. Second one was a modification of this G.V. Black's classification. Third one was Graham J. Mount, and fourth one was by Vimal Sikri or V.K. Sikri. Okay, so these are the 4 classification. Mainly first and second are based on the G.V. Black's classification, ideal G.V. Black classification as well as the modification, and Graham Mount, and fourth one is Vimal Sikri. Now G.V. Black's classification was the first classification which was given or put forward, which was universally accepted one. Okay, which was based on the treatment and the area involved. Okay, the tooth area, which was how far the tooth was involved. Now it was controlled by number of factors. So the factors are, which was to gain access and visibility, removal of the affected dentin from the floor, room for restorative material, extension for prevention, retentive designs, cavo surface margins as self-cleaning areas. Okay, so these all were the important controlled factors. Okay, controlling factors which were put forward. Now one factor which you should always remember is that the G.V. Black put forward the theory of extension for prevention. Okay, so this wordings, or this is a motive, or this is a phrase which was always known as G.V. Black's words, that is extension for prevention. Okay, which is meaning that G.V. Black always aimed to extend the cavity preparation for the prevention of further caries attack. Okay, so he aimed to extend the preparation, not conservatively. Okay, either conservatively or some other way, but he always meant for the extension purpose or extension for the prevention. So let's see what was the GV Black's classification which he put forward. It included class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So class 1 to 6. 6 classes of classification was given by the GV Black. First one was, as you can see in the picture, it was the caries which is affecting pits and fissures on the occlusal thirds of molars and premolars, occlusal two-thirds of molars and premolars. So mainly it is aiming for the posterior teeth, and as well as one important point which is the lingual part of the anterior teeth. Okay, mostly it is asked in the MCQs as lingual part of the anterior teeth includes and comes under which class of the GV Black's classification. So that is class 1. Except that all the other things are pits and fissures on the molars and premolars, which will be the posterior teeth. Now class 2, that is caries which are affecting the proximal surface of molars and premolars, again the back tooth which is affecting on the proximal surfaces. Class 3 is the proximal surface of the anteriors, that is central incisors, lateral incisors and cuspids, without the involvement of the incisal angles. Okay, so class 3 it is angle, so A comes first, so class 3 it is A. Okay, so that is incisal angle. Now that is without the involvement of the incisal angle. Fourth one is class 4, which is caries affecting again the anteriors. Okay, so class 1 and 2 are posteriors, 3 and 4 are anteriors. Fourth one is also anterior only, the proximal surface only, but including the incisal angles of the anterior teeth. Okay, incisal angles as well as incisal edges. Okay, so it involves. Third one does not involve the incisal angles. Class 5 are the gingival 1/3 of facial or lingual surface of the anterior or posterior teeth. Anywhere, but it should be on the gingival 1/3. Okay, gingival 1/3 of the facial, buccal or lingual surfaces. Class 6 are the caries which are affecting the cusp tip of the molars, premolars and cuspids. Okay, so cusp tip is class 6. 1, 2 are proximal surfaces of the posteriors, 3, 4 are proximal surface of the anterior, 5 is affecting the gingival third and 6 is affecting on the cusp tip. Let's see the Graham J. Mounds classification, which is designed to simplify the identification of these lesions. Now this has two aspects. Okay, one is according to the site of the lesion, second one is according to the size of the lesion. So site and size, okay, you can see in the table which is given, site and size is marked here. So site will be pit and fissure, contact areas and cervical part. Size will be minimum, moderate, enlarged and extensive. So 4 sizes and 3 sites. Now this will be the classification. If it is minimal with the pit and fissures, that is 1.1, minimal in the contact area it is 2.1, minimal in the cervical area it is 3.1, moderate in the pit and fissure that is 1.2, moderate in the contact area that is 2.2. So whatever is this site, that comes first and the size comes second. So site and size, this is Graham Mounds classification. Other classification is Vimal Sikri's classification, which was classifying same as GV Black and then gave division in each classes. That included simple tooth preparation, compound tooth preparation, complex tooth preparation. Simple means only one tooth surface is involved. Compound means two tooth surfaces involved. Complex means involving 3 or more surfaces of the tooth. So that is how Vimal Sikri gave the classification. Now moving on to the cavity. Ideally a cavity is defined as a defect in the enamel or dentin. Okay, cavity means it is a cut or it is a hole, that is defect in the enamel or dentin which is resulting from pathologic process of the dental caries, that is breach in the continuity of the surface integrity of the tooth. Okay, these wordings you have to remember because it has been asked very commonly. So it is a breach in the continuity of the surface integrity of the tooth, that is defined as a cavity, as well as a defect in the enamel or dentin which is resulting from the pathological process of the dental caries. Now the term cavity was used to describe a carious lesion in a tooth that has progressed to the point that part of the tooth structure has been destroyed. Okay, so the cavity term was used to describe a carious lesion in a tooth that has been destroyed, or it is reached up to the point that part of the tooth structure is called as destroyed. Moving on to some another important aspect, which is incipient caries or types of caries, which is including incipient caries. So incipient means it is the earliest one. So earliest sign of a new caries lesion, okay, is the appearance of chalky white spot on the surface of the tooth. So whenever there is appearance of chalky white spot on the tooth surface, that indicates that it is going for a caries process or caries lesion is starting there, which is indicating an area of demineralization of enamel. So important points to be noted: caries means means the incipient lesion of caries will be appearance of a chalky white spot on the tooth surface, which is indicating the demineralization of the enamel. So this is referred to as white spot lesion or incipient caries. Okay, so incipient caries and white spot lesion, these are similar, and it refers to the appearance of the chalky white spot, which is the demineralization of the enamel. So white spot lesion, you should remember, appears when the tooth surface is dried. Okay, you can visualize that when the tooth surface is dried. Okay, when you are drying the tooth surface, you can see the incipient caries, which is the white spot. Now, incipient caries will partially or totally disappear visually when the enamel is wet, and while hypocalcified enamel is relatively unaffected by drying as well as wetting. Okay, so hypercalcification also is seen as this white chalky appearance, but that is relatively unaffected by the drying and wetting. This point has to be noted. Now, early caries lesion, that is best seen on the smooth surface of the teeth, which is visible as white spot. Histologically, the lesion has apparently intact surface layer overlying subsurface demineralization. So there will be intact superficial surface of the tooth, but which is saying that overlying subsurface of the demineralization. Now, significantly, such a lesion can undergo remineralization, and thus the lesion per se is not an indication for restorative treatment. That always should be remembered, because this incipient caries is showing that there is demineralization happening, so that can be remineralized. Again, that mineral content can be re-established in that, so the tooth structure is intact always. Okay, so that does not show that the tooth surface or tooth structure is broken. Okay, so there is proper tooth structure which is remaining. So when you are considering remineralization process, then the tooth can be perfectly gone back to or reverted back to the normal tooth. Next word which is always seen is hibernation of the dentin. Hibernation or hibernation it is called as. Caries which becomes stationary or static, okay, and does not show any tendency for the further progression, that is called as arrested caries. Okay, which becomes stationary, that is arrested caries. Both deciduous and permanent affected. Okay, both these teeth can be affected with the shift in the oral conditions. Whenever there is shift in the oral condition, even these advanced lesions can become arrested. Now, arrested caries involving dentin, which shows a markedly brown pigmentation. Okay, so it is involving the dentin, which is showing markedly brown pigmentation and induration of the lesion. Okay, then it is so called hibernation of the dentin. Okay, whenever there is arrested caries which is involving the dentin, please note these words: arrested caries involving dentin, which is showing markedly brown pigmentation, okay, or induration of the lesion. This is then called as hibernation of the dentin. Sclerosis of the dentinal tubules and secondary dentin formation is commonly occurring there. Okay, sclerosis of the dentinal tubules as well as secondary dentin formation. Superficially softened and decalcified dentin will be seen, that is getting burnished. Okay, that gets burnished and has brown stained polished appearance in this hibernation of the dentin. So the point to be noted is superficially softened and decalcified dentin gets burnished and brown stained. Okay, that is in the polished appearance, which is known as hibernation of the dentin. So it is in the dentinal area. Arrested caries which is involving the dentinal caries. So you should know what is arrested caries and what is hibernation of the dentin. It should always be remembered along with the arrested caries, because it is arrested caries which is involving the dentin. Please remember. Whenever we come across with the carious process in a tooth surface, what we have to do is, whenever there is a caries or cavity, then we have to prepare a cavity. Okay, that is called as cavity preparation, and ideally it should obtain or it should receive a restorative material which can re-establish the tooth form and function. Now, this tooth preparation, there are some walls which are called as internal walls, axial wall, pulpal wall, etc. Okay, so these walls have a very important factor or point in this tooth preparation. So tooth preparation walls are internal wall. Okay, internal wall, as you can see here, internal wall is an internally prepared surface that does not extend to the external tooth surface. So whatever internal tooth surface is prepared, that is having a wall, that is called as internal wall. Now axial wall is there. An axial wall is an internal wall which is parallel with the long axis of the tooth. Okay, whenever there is an axial wall, that is an internal wall which is parallel to the long axis of the tooth. Please note these words: parallel to the long axis of the tooth. You can see here the axial wall here. Now pulpal wall is there. Pulpal wall means it is an internal wall that is perpendicular to the long axis of the tooth and occlusal occlusal of the pulp. So it is perpendicular to the position of the pulp as well as perpendicular to the long axis of the tooth. So axial wall as well as pulpal wall you can see here in the picture. Next ones are external wall. Okay, what is an external wall? That is a prepared surface that extend to the external tooth surface. Floor or seat. Floor is prepared wall that is reasonably flat and perpendicular to the occlusal forces that are directed occlusogingivally. So it is receiving the occlusal forces perpendicular to the tooth or tooth long axis. That is a floor. Now enamel wall will be there. Enamel wall is that portion of a prepared external wall which is consisting of enamel. Okay, that is enamel wall. Whenever there is dentinal wall, that will be portion of the prepared external wall which is consisting of dentin, okay, in which mechanical features can be located. So that point is very important. Dentinal wall is there or external prepared tooth surface will be there which is consisting of dentin in which the mechanical features can be located. So always any mechanical features will be located in the dentinal wall. Next we are moving on to the cavity preparation angles. Okay, there are so many angles which will be formed during the cavity preparation. These are known as line angles as well as point angles. Okay, line angle and point angle both are very different. What is the difference? Line angle is saying that there is a junction of two planar surface of the different orientation along in a line. Okay, so these are two plane surfaces which are meeting at a point, that is a junction, which is a line angle. Point angle is a point angle that is a junction of three planar surfaces of the different orientation. So whenever there is meeting of a three planes, that is point angles. If it is two planes which is meeting, then it is line angle. Now internal line angles are there, external line angles are there when considering the line angles. Internal line angle means it is a line angle whose apex points into the tooth, and external line angle is the line angle whose apex points away from the tooth. So these are the important difference between internal as well as external line angles. Now in the point angle, these are the junction of three planar surfaces. You can see in the picture. Okay, line angle and point angle is written here in the picture right side. Now one more angle is there, that is cavo-surface angle. This is very important angle. This cavo-surface angle is the angle of the tooth structure formed by the junction of prepared cavity wall and the external surface of the tooth. Whenever there is a prepared tooth cavity, okay, so prepared wall and the external tooth surface, that is forming an angle, that is called as cavo-surface angle. One more point which you should remember, that there are two different types of caries progression, that is forward caries as well as backward caries. Forward caries is the caries where the cone in the enamel is larger or at least the same size that as that in the dentin. Okay, so which is in enamel which is more, that is forwardly moving. Okay, that is first picture, a picture which is shown on the left hand side, that is the forward caries. So in that, cone in the enamel will be larger or at least same to that the dentin. Now backward caries is when the spread of the caries along with the DEJ that exceeds the caries in the contiguous enamel. So whenever there is more caries process happening in the dentin than the enamel, then the caries extends into this enamel from the junction, that is called as backward caries. Now for the cavity preparation, a number 245 burr that has a head length of 3 mm and a tip diameter of 0.8 mm, that is mainly used, which is the inverted cone burr. Okay, so number 245 burr is the important burr for the cavity preparation, which has a 3 mm length and a 0.8 mm diameter. Now this 0.8 mm diameter, we can think of remembering it as like 1 mm, because that 1 mm should be the width of the cavity. Okay, so always whenever there is width of the cavity or anything, which should be kept in mind how far we are going, so that burr itself can be used as a measuring tip. Okay, so the diameter we can think like that, as well as the length of the burr is 3 mm. That means that half of the burr is enough for the cavity preparation. Okay, or less than half of the burr is enough for the depth of the cavity preparation. So length, so that we can get the depth of the cavity preparation, that is number 245 burr. Number 330 burr is also there, which is a smaller and pear shaped version of the 245 burr. Okay, which is used mainly in the periodic uses as well as the most conservative amalgam preparations that this can be used. Both the pictures have been given here, which is 245 as well as 330 burrs. Now let's see with the stages of cavity preparation. There are two main stages, which is initial steps of cavity preparation as well as final steps of the cavity preparation. Initial step involves 4 steps as well as final steps involves 5 steps. Okay, so totally it is 9 steps of cavity preparation, which is divided into 2, which is initial steps as well as the final steps. Now initial steps involves outline form and initial depth. Okay, so first, before we are starting with the cavity preparation, we are forming the outline and initial depth is determined first. Then primary resistance form, primary retention form, and at the end it is convenience form. These are the 4 steps of the initial steps of cavity preparation, which is outline form and initial depth, primary resistance form, primary retention form, and convenience form. Final steps of cavity preparation involves 5 stages, as I have already mentioned. First one is removal of any remaining infected dentin or old restorations. Second one is pulp protection whenever there is indicated. Third one is secondary resistance and retention form. Together it is, okay, secondary resistance and retention form. Fourth one is finishing these external walls. And fifth one is cleaning, inspecting, and sealing. That is the last one. So it involves 5 steps. First one will be the removal of any remaining dentin or infected dentin or old restoration. Then we have to think of the pulp protection. Then the secondary resistance and retention features or forms. At last, finishing the external walls and cleaning, inspecting, and sealing. Let's see the important points coming under each steps or each stages of the cavity preparation. So first will be outline form and the initial depth. According to the definition, outline form is placing the cavity margins and the positions they will occupy in the final preparation, except for finishing enamel walls and margins. Okay, so these are the placement of the cavity margins in the proper positions. Now preparing an initial depth, okay, initial depth of 0.2 to 0.8 mm, okay, 0.2 to 0.8 mm is the range for the preparation of initial depth of the cavity, which is pulpally, okay, of the dentino-enamel junction. Now this covers the principles of 3 things, okay, 3 principles have been noted. Now first one is all friable and weakened enamel should be removed. Second one is all fault should be included, and third one is all margin should be placed in positions to afford good finishing of the margins of the restoration. Okay, so these are the 3 principles to follow for the outline form and initial depth preparation. The features for the outline form includes 6 features, okay, 6 main features. First one is we should always preserve the cuspal strength. Second one is preserving the marginal ridge, okay, so cuspal strength and marginal ridge, which we have to preserve always. Minimizing the faciolingual extension, using enameloplasty whenever needed, connecting 2 close fault of the tooth, okay, any 2 close fault which can be connected, which are less than 0.0 mm apart, okay. So if it is 0.5 mm apart, then only we have to connect the 2 faults which is nearby, okay. So nearing 2 faults which should be connected only when it is less than 0.5 mm apart. Restricting depth of the penetration into the dentin for pit and fissure sealants or pit and fissure caries, that should be 0.2, and for smooth surface caries that should be 0.2 to 0.8 mm. Now the depth of preparation, which is restricting the depth of penetration into the dentin, okay. So for pit and fissure it should be 0.2 mm, and for the smooth surface it should be 0.2 to 0.8 mm. This point is very important, that is the depth of the preparation. Preserving this marginal ridge strength, okay, why we have to preserve these strength or these marginal ridges gives strength even after the restoration also. So we have to preserve as much as possible. Remaining marginal ridge should be greater than 1.6 mm for premolar and 2 mm for molars, okay. So the remaining marginal ridge should be greater than 1.6 mm for the premolars and 2 mm for the molars. If remaining marginal ridge that is less than 1.6 mm, okay, there may be the chances of fracture due to the undermining the ridges, okay. So to avoid these fractures, we should always have 1.6 mm for the premolar and 2 mm for molars as the marginal ridge which is preserved. Now one more point to be noted here is enameloplasty. This is the procedure of reshaping the enamel surface by making it rounded or saucered, or that is saucer shaped, okay, and that area becomes cleansable and finishable, that is enameloplasty. It is indicated when remaining fissure that is not greater than 1/3 of the enamel thickness, okay. So enamel fissure is not greater than, that is remaining not greater than in a 1/3 of the enamel thickness, then we can go for the enameloplasty. Whenever we are determining the outline form of the cavity, there is one more thing which you should remember is the gingiva. Okay, so the position of the gingival floor in cases of class 2 cavities, there should be always gingival floor preparation. Okay, so in class 2 cavities, the gingival margin should be extended apically of the proximal contact. Okay, apically of the proximal contact, which provides a minimum of 0.5 mm clearance between the gingival margin and the adjacent tooth. Okay, so there should be at least minimum 0.5 mm clearance between the gingival margin and the adjacent tooth. Now, cavity should extend 0.2 to 0.8 mm to form the proximal box. Okay, 0.2 to 0.8 mm should be extended into the proximal box preparation. So, proximal box it is 0.2 to 0.8 mm extension, and gingival clearance, okay, that is 0.5 mm clearance. Gingival seat in a cavity preparation or class 2 restoration, that should be having some important features. Okay, it should extend apical to the proximal contact or caries, whichever is greater. Now it should clear the adjacent tooth by 0.5 mm. For amalgam restoration, the gingival margin should be beveled at 15 to 20 degree. Okay, whereas for cast restoration, the beveling is should be 30 to 40 degree. So amalgam restoration, the gingival margin should be beveled at 15 to 20 degree centigrade using gingival marginal trimmer. Okay, that is the beveling instrument used, gingival marginal trimmer, that is left and right gingival marginal trimmer or GMT is there. If gingival seat is located in the root surface, then beveling is contraindicated. Okay, whenever it is positioned in the root surface, then beveling is contraindicated. The facial and lingual walls of the proximal box that are extended such that they clear the adjacent tooth by 0.2 to 0.3 mm. Okay, clearance to adjacent tooth clearance is 0.2 to 0.3 mm. Please note these points. The facial and lingual walls are placed in their respective embrasures. Now, for a butt joint and for a lap joint, okay, what are the different features of each joint? Butt joint and lap joint, or it is also known as slip joint. Butt joint means 90 degree cavo surface angle is always called as butt joint. Okay, so it is a 90 degree butt joint. Okay, advocated in amalgam restorations because amalgam is a brittle material and has low edge strength. Now, butt joint produces maximal strength for both the restoration as well as for the tooth. It is also advocated in silicate as well as porcelain restorations. So, it is a 90 degree angle, cavo surface angle, which is called as butt joint. Now, lap or slip joint, that is more than 90 degree of the cavo surface angle. Whenever there is more than that, then it is lap or slip joint. It is advocated in cast and composite restorations. So, composite restorations as well as cast restorations, you can go with the lap or slip joint. 30 to 40 degree marginal metals are there, and as well as 40 to 150 degree cavo surface angle will be formed. Beveling enables superior adaptation and burnishability of the marginal metal. The very important part in a cavity preparation is the isthmus. Okay, the name isthmus was given by G.V. Black, which advocate that class 2 cavity preparation with isthmus width, okay, that should be equal to the 1/3 of the intercuspal distance. So it should be isthmus width should be equal to the 1/3 of the intercuspal distance. You can see in the picture what is an isthmus. Okay, so the by Weil and Brunner, it should be 1/4 of the intercuspal distance. Now the axiopulpal line angle, that should be beveled to reduce the concentration of stresses and which provides greater bulk of the material in the isthmus area, which is liable to fracture. So the best and the easily fractured area in the class 2 cavity preparation or class 2 restoration is always it is isthmus. So isthmus fracture, all the measures should be taken to take care of the isthmus area. Okay, so that is the best one which will be gone for the first. So isthmus is an important factor which is put forward by G.V. Black again. Another important point is reverse curve, okay, or reverse S curve. Reverse curve is when viewed from occlusal outline form of class 2 cavity, particularly in maxillary teeth, in the proximal contact which is lying towards the buccal surface. Okay, as you can see in the second picture here, that is the reverse S curve, where you'll have proximal contact area which is lying next to the buccal surface. There you are leaving the contact between the next teeth. Okay, that curvature which we are giving into the outer tooth form, that is reverse curve, whereas the groove line occurs in the central portion of the occlusal table. This disparity, that is necessitating the occlusal outline form with the reverse S curve. Now the advantage why we are giving this reverse S curve, that is it preserves the triangular ridge of the cusp and it facilitates formation of 90-degree angle between the proximal wall and the tangent of the proximal surface. So this is preserving, okay, this is a preservation feature for the tooth structure to maintain longer. Okay, so reverse S curve or reverse curve is important in the, most commonly it is applied in the maxillary premolar teeth. Second feature is primary resistance form. Okay, as definition, it is the shape and placement of the cavity walls that best enable both the restoration and the tooth to withstand without fracture when masticatory forces which are delivered principally in the long axis of the, or the along the long axis of the tooth. So this is the shape and placement of the cavity wall. Okay, how we are shaping and placing the cavity walls which can best give the protection to the restoration as well as to the tooth. From what protection? To withstand the fracture or masticatory forces without any fracture. Okay, masticatory forces which will be delivered principally along the long axis of the tooth, that is what is called as primary resistance form. The features of the primary resistance form are 7 features. This is very important, 7 features. Anything can be asked. Okay, any feature can be asked. So firstly you should have you always remember that that is the shape and placement of the cavity walls. Okay, how we are shaping and placing the cavity walls. So what all features you will have in the cavity wall, that are the features of the primary resistance form. The main features are box shape, relatively flat floor, inclusion of all the weakened tooth structure, preservation of the cusp and marginal ridges, roundening the internal line angles, adequate thickness of restorative material, as well as reduction of cusp for capping whenever it is indicated. Okay, so only one thing what you have to remember about the restorative material is the adequate thickness of the restorative material, where you are having adequate depth of the cavity. Okay, so that is indirect one. Now the type of restorative material also dictates resistance form. Okay, whenever it is in need. Okay, that is in the 3 types. The type of restorative material, okay, which material you are going to place, that also dictates how your resistant form should be. In cases of silver amalgam, that needs thickness of 1.5 mm. Okay, cast metal, that is needing the thickness of 1 to 2 mm, which is less than the silver amalgam. Now porcelains, they need much thicker one. Okay, so they are the thickest one, so they need 2 mm thickness. Earlier I mentioned one cusp capping. Okay, reduction of the cusp for capping whenever it is indicated as a primary resistance form. Now we are moving into details of this cusp capping. Okay, so rules of cusp capping are: outline form that has extended no more than half of the distance from the primary groove to cusp tip. Okay, there no cusp capping is indicated. Okay, so outline form which has extended no more than half of the distance from the primary groove to the cusp tip, from in that cases no cusp capping is indicated. Whenever if the extension is from half to 2/3 the distance, okay, more than half, okay, more than half to 2/3 of the distance, then you can consider cusp capping. If the extension is more than 2/3 of the distance, then you have to do, that is cusp capping is mandatory. Now for cusp capping with amalgam, okay, when the material is amalgam, the cusp reduction should be 2 mm for functional cusp and 1.5 mm for non-functional cusp. All these minute points are very important, please note. Okay, for amalgam cusp capping, for the functional cusp it should be 2 mm and 1.5 mm for the non-functional cusp. Now cusp capping with metal, okay, metal cusp restorations, whenever there is metal restorations, in such cases cusp capping can be done, where cusp reduction should be 1.5 mm for functional cusp and 1 mm for non-functional cusp. Earlier only I mentioned that amalgam, less than amalgam, the metal is needing the depth of the cavity. Similarly, amalgam needs 2 mm for functional cusp, less than that, that is 1.5 mm functional cusp whenever we are using the metal. Now tooth preparation and location of the retention grooves, where you have to place the grooves. Okay, in cases of class 2 cavity preparation, buccoaxial and linguoaxial line angles we are selecting for the location of the retention of the grooves or retention grooves. Class 3 cases, it should be placed in the axiogingival line angle. Okay, so class 2 it is buccal or lingual axial line angles. Class 3 it is axiogingival line angle. Class 5 it is occlusoaxial or gingivoaxial line angles. These points also you have to remember. Next one is primary retention form, that is the third step, that is primary retention form. As per the definition, it is the shape or form of the conventional preparation which is resisting the displacement or removal of the restoration from tipping or lifting forces. So this is also indirectly a shape or form of the preparation, okay, which is resisting the displacement or removal of the restoration. Before one which was having the potential to support or to withstand the masticatory forces. Now this is resisting the restoration or any kind of thing from displacing. Okay, in many aspects retention and resistance form are accomplished in the same cutting procedure only. Now the principal means of retention, we are obtaining the means of retention by frictional retention. Okay, that word is important. Frictional retention is by is giving the principal means of retention in the primary retention form. It is greater surface area, that is length, width, depth, all those things should be greater, which produces greater frictional component. Parallel walls or convergent walls, which will provide greater frictional retention. Proximity, bringing the restorative material closer to the root structure during insertion, which provides greater frictional retention component. Elastic deformation of the dentin, during the condensation process within dentin proportional limit, which can add more gripping action. So everything is intended towards the frictional retention, more frictional component. So that is the primary means of retention form. What is the importance of this primary retention and resistance form in class 2 cavity preparations? Mainly class 2 cavity preparation has all these features very importantly placed in the cavity preparation. Now important factor is that dovetail in class 2 cavity is given. Okay, dovetail provides retention in class 2 cavity. You have to remember dovetail comes under the primary retention form, which is providing the retention for the cavity preparation, and also it prevents lateral displacement of the restoration in class 2 cavity. So dovetail is given in providing retention, as well as that prevents the lateral displacement of the restoration in cases of class 2 cavity. Now in such cases with class 1 cavity, it is given for purposeful modification in outline, which is usually for extension for prevention, okay, which is aiming for extension for prevention in class 1 cavity, whereas in class 2 cavity these dovetails are very important. Now the principles for amalgam restoration will be developing external cavity walls that converge occlusally, adhesive system which providing retention by micromechanically bonding amalgam to the root structure. These two principles can be applied for the amalgam restorations. In cases of composite restoration, a mechanical bond between the material and the conditioned or prepared root structure should be obtained. Now you can see in the picture where you will have enamel adhesive or enamel prism, prismatic etching, intra-prism etching is seen, micro tag as well as macro tags can be seen. So these tags are in between the enamel, which are having the retention, which is obtaining the retention for the restoration. The fourth step of initial tooth preparation steps are convenience form. Okay, that is the fourth step, which is convenience form. Now according to the concept, it is the shape or form of the cavity, okay, shape or form of the cavity that provides adequate observation, accessibility and ease of operation in preparing and restoring the cavity. How we are having the adequate observation, accessibility and ease of operation, all those things are determined by the convenience form. Now the principles are which allows access for caries removal, access for restoration placement, as well as access to margins for finishing, evaluating and for cleaning the restoration. All these things are under the convenience form. Moving on to the final steps of the cavity preparation, it has 5 steps. Okay, first one is removal of any remaining infected dentin or old restoration whenever it is indicated or if indicated. So any elimination of any infected caries tooth structure or faulty restorative material which is left in the tooth after the initial cavity preparation, that should be removed. Soft decay, that can be best removed by using the spoon excavator by flaking up the caries. Okay, whenever there is soft decay which is remained, that can be removed using spoon excavator. If it is hard decay which is heavily discolored, that should be removed using very low speed burr. Okay, these points are very important, please note. Soft decay how we can remove, hard decay how we should remove, and care should be taken during removal as pulp may be infected by forcing microorganisms into the dentinal tubules through excessive pressure. So we should be dealing with very mild pressure. Okay, we should not force it. Next step is pulp protection if indicated. Pulp protection mainly is by liners, bases. Okay, liners or bases. So using liners or bases we are intending for the pulp protection. It is to protect the pulp or to aid pulpal recovery, or it is to aim for the both or protection as well as recovery. Now liners as well as bases are used. What are liners? Liners are volatile aqueous suspension or dispersion of the zinc oxide or calcium hydroxide that can be applied to tooth surface in relatively thin film. Okay, it is a very thin film and are used to affect a particular pulpal response. So we are placing a liner or a material onto the pulp, over to the pulp surface, where it can protect the pulp from any kind of leaching of the material or any harm, okay, to the pulp. That can be prevented by placing this relatively thin film of the liner. Now similarly bases are there, but bases are those cements which are used in thicker dimensions, okay, thicker than the liners beneath the permanent restoration. Before placing the restorations, we are placing this bases, after which we are placing the restorative material so that the pulp can be protected more. So this provides mechanical, chemical, thermal protection to the pulp. You can see in the picture, this is a schematic view of needs for pulpal protection whenever below metallic restoration. You can see here chemical protection, dental amalgam is there, thermal protection is indicated, mechanical protection, pulpal medication, electrical protection, everything is written here. So we have to prevent all these or protect pulp from all these kind of harms. Liners are primarily used to provide a barrier to protect the dentin from residual reactants, okay, that is placed for the protection of dentin from residual reactants. Liners are those, but bases are used to provide thermal protection for the pulp and to supplement mechanical support for the restoration by distributing local stresses from restoration across the underlying dentin surface. If remaining dentin or remaining dentin which over the pulp, that is 2 mm, then there is no need for the liners, okay. So the remaining dentin thickness, that is RDT, remaining dentin thickness RDT, which is 2 mm, that is the dentin thickness which is remained after the pulp. But when there is less than 2 mm of this RDT, that is remaining dentin thickness, then pulp protection is mandatory. These are very important point. Please note it. Here is a schematic representation which is showing the examples of liners and bases for the amalgam restoration. In the first preparation, it is shallow tooth preparation where you have used only varnish under the restoration. In the second picture, whenever there is moderate tooth preparation, we are placing varnish, okay, as well as a liner of zinc oxide eugenol or calcium hydroxide which is beneath the restoration. Now the seeds in sound dentin, okay, and the seeds in that sound dentin can be also seen there. Now for very deep tooth preparation, what all we are using is calcium hydroxide liner is there, glass ionomer base is there, over to which again varnish is also there, okay. So these three things, that is base, sub base as well as varnish. For very deep preparations we can apply all these three things. So this is how we have to choose based on the remaining dentin thickness. So coming on to the pulp protection according to the depth of the tooth preparation, accordingly what I have explained before, it is mainly dealt with the RDT, which is remaining dentin thickness. In the table given, you can see that the type of restoration according to the material of restoration, shallow, moderate as well as deep cavity preparations. That is shallow meaning to say RDT which is more than 2 mm, moderate which is having RDT which is in between 0.5 to 2 mm, with deep which is having very less than 0.5 mm of the RDT. Considering silver amalgam, varnish, base, calcium hydroxide as sub base covered with base can be given for shallow, moderate as well as deep preparations. That means that whenever there is shallow preparations, silver amalgam should apply varnish. For glass ionomer, nothing is required, as well as for composite resin, you can apply dentin bonding agent. In cases of moderately deep preparations, for silver amalgam restoration, you can have base. For glass ionomer preparations, you can you does not need anything. For composite, you can have dentin bonding agents. For cast gold restorations, you can have base. Now for the deeper restorations, which is very important, for the silver amalgam placement, whenever you have a deeper cavity, you should have calcium hydroxide as sub base which is covered with a base. That means sub base plus base. In cases of glass ionomer cement, you can have calcium hydroxide as liner, okay. Please note that calcium hydroxide as liner in cases of GIC restorations. Whenever you are having composite restorations, you have to have calcium hydroxide as a liner followed by glass ionomer as a base. So liner plus base is given for composite resins. In case of cast gold restorations, you always have calcium hydroxide as a liner with base over it. So these all are the pulp protection whenever needed in cases of the deep, moderate as well as shallow preparations where there is remaining dentin thickness plays a very important role according to the material or type of the restoration which we are using. Secondary resistance and retention forms are there, which is the 7th step. Now it is the most compound and complex cavity preparations that require additional resistance and retention form. In such cases, we have to consider secondary resistance and retention forms. The exception being those preparations that are very conservative. The mechanical forms which are included are retention locks, grooves and coves, groove extensions, skirts, beveled enamel margins, pins, slots, steps and amalgam pins. These are the mechanical forms of secondary resistance and retention forms. Now, cavity wall conditioning form is there, which is placement of etchant, primer, adhesive on the prepared wall. In addition to the mechanical alteration to tooth structure, certain bonding agents also provide some extent of retention and resistance form. Such treatment require in bonded restoration like porcelain, composite or amalgam materials. Next step is the finishing the external walls. According to the definition, it is the further development of a specific KO surface design and degree of smoothness that produces the maximum effectiveness of the restorative material being used. The objectives included are to create best marginal seal and to afford a smooth marginal junction and to provide maximum strength. These are the important 3 points of objectives for the finishing the external walls. In this picture shown here, you can see the strongest enamel margin is that the margin which is composed of full length enamel rods that are supported on the cavity side by shorter enamel rods, all of which extend to the sound engine. Okay, so this is the strongest enamel margin, which is that margin which is composed of full length enamel rods. Okay, with support from the cavity side by shorter enamel rods. So that is A and B, which is shown here in the picture. The design of the KO surface angle, which is depending on the material. Okay, so how the KO surface angle should be designed based on the material. The main materials which are dealing here is amalgam and composite. On amalgam, it should have a 90-degree KO surface angle. So that is KO surface angle of 90 degree, which is also known as butt joint. Okay, butt joint. It helps to minimize the marginal deterioration of restoration by locating the margins away from the enamel eminences where occlusal forces may be concentrated. So whenever we consider amalgam, the KO surface margin should be 90 degree, which is butt joint. Now the other material is composite. A beveling of 30 to 40 degree is given to the composite materials. So it is indicated primarily in larger restorations because the potential for retention increases by increasing the surface area of the enamel available for etching. Okay, so that is why we are having 30 to 40 degree of beveling to the composite materials, and in amalgam it is 90 degree KO surface margin. So these are the two important points of KO surface angle based on the materials, that is amalgam 90 degree and composite with 30 to 40 degree beveling. This is a picture which is showing the longitudinal section as well as which is explaining the supported and unsupported enamel rods. In the first section, which is having the longitudinal section of the class 2, where you will have unsupported enamel rods. Okay, it is shown here in the arrow, unsupported enamel rods. When we are beveling the gingival floor, how the enamel, unsupported enamel is removed or enamel rods are being removed. So normally the beveling is given up to 15 to 20 degree. Vertical section of class 2 tooth preparation is shown here. A slight bevel is given to remove the unsupported enamel rods. Now the last and final step is final procedures, which includes cleaning, inspecting and sealing. After you finish all those things, you have to clean, inspect and later on seal it. So the final preparation is done. So these are the two main parts of the cavity preparation. First steps including four, that is initial step including 4 steps, and the final preparation which includes 5 steps. Okay, so these are the 9 total steps of fundamentals of cavity preparation, the guideline or accordingly what we have to study. Now all these points have been mentioned, please study carefully.